Welcome to the Be Happy Now show. Flex your soul connection muscle and be your inner guide to fulfillment and purpose. I'm Claudia-Sam. If you know that you're here for a bigger reason, this is the place to be. Together, we ditch the self-care guilt and quit the go, go, go with less fear and more trust. Tune in to living life in alignment with your full potential. The Be Happy Now show starts now. Hi, welcome to the Be Happy Now show. I'm your host, Claudia-Sam, and this episode is all about you creating your self-care routine checklist. And if you're usually on the go and you're busy and you like to stay on track to reaching your goals, I totally get how you would want a checklist. I used to be the queen of the to-do lists, and I would highlight everything that was a priority, and I would create even like little check boxes and stars, and I would have my own system of what feels like I'm moving forward and on track. So is that you? Do you feel like you also love to have those lists and that direction? If so, then you're at the right place. Okay. It actually tames the mind and the ego to just know what to do and to have that direction and, have a step-by-step list so that we can follow it and well, have a sense of direction and know where we're going. And part of what I coach my clients through in the Tune In program is that there is a component that tames the ego and that shows the direction. The clue here is that it's your direction. You get to tune into what your direction is to the goal that you want, whether it's having more self-confidence, feeling more worthy within yourself, feeling like you're on track in your self-care, like you're prioritizing yourself. And so if you're here right now, chances are you're not feeling on track, right? And whatever you've tried up until now hasn't worked. It hasn't worked the best yet. And I totally get that. So what we are going to do today is build your own checklist. Like I just mentioned, the Tune In program, the modules, part of the modules, because there's also one-on-one coaching in the Tune In program. When you do the modules, that is one component. That's the step-by-step part that can help you get to where you want to be. So I'm getting that you're here because you want to have a self-care routine that looks a specific way. And instead of following mine, because you are unique and you get to have your own self-care checklist, I don't want you to follow mine because it might not feel in alignment for you. So I'm going to talk to you today about what happens when we have a checklist so that maybe you can change your mindset around what putting yourself first is, about what having a self-care kind of morning routine or checklist. How can that look like and how can that be different for you? So I also have a special guest today, which is one of my clients and friends. Lisa will be here to answer some of the questions that could help you answer the soul connection coaching questions that I will ask you. So the first component is we're going to change the mindset, hopefully, if that's what you're willing to do with me, around what having and needing a self-care routine checklist is and what it provides you with. And then we're going to go into the coaching portion of this episode today, so that you can also, feel like you're not alone and have someone answer the questions from their point of view. And then you get to maybe pause the episode and answer the questions for yourself. If we've never met, my name is Claudia-Sam. I'm your soul connection coach, and I support leaders and guides, beings who want to access their intuition. And I help support them on their way to more confidence, on their way to feeling their worthy selves and really in line with their light and who they're here to be. And I do that using my Tune In method. So if at any time you want to learn more about the Tune In method, then just go to tuneinmethod.com. The link will be in the show notes. So first, I want to tell you about what happens when we have a checklist. Here's what happens when we have a checklist. We follow only what's on the list, right? We follow what's on the list. We feel bad when we don't do something that's on the list. Like I wrote it down. Why didn't I do it? So we guilt ourselves in feeling behind as well. And if you've been feeling like you're falling behind on something in your life, then I invite you to check out the episode from July 7th, 2022, entitled "The Number One Reason Your Priorities Don't Work and You Fall Behind on Your Goals." So you can tune into that, and maybe that can help you if you ever feel like you're falling behind. When we have a checklist, what also happens is that we end up with headaches. We end up with migraines, with jaw clenching, with tightness in the stomach, with anxiety and stress because of the pressure to perform. It's like when there's a list, it's right there in our face. And it's almost like we are putting that pressure on ourselves to not deviate from it. Does that resonate with you? Not only does it build anxiety, it can also have a sense of commitment. I like to have lists. Sometimes I'll have periods of times when I love to have lists, and it keeps me on track because I have so much in my head, so much creativity, so many things that I want to and get to do that I put them on paper until that project is done. Then I don't need the list anymore. But before then, when I used to work in media, I remember having to-do lists, like they were never ending. And one time my boss came to my door and said, it was, I think, like 6:30 in the evening. And he said, "So what are you still doing here?" "Well, my to-do list, it's so long, I can't leave." And he said, "Well, Claudia-Sam, your to-do list is going to be there tomorrow." Uh-huh. So he forced me out of the office. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. When we have a checklist, we also end up right where we were, feeling overwhelmed and putting so much pressure on ourselves to do it right and to do more. Do you ever really complete the to-do list? Or does it feel like we just keep adding to it? Sometimes that's what it is. So I want to bust the myth that we need a checklist. I know you came on this show, on this episode, and you're like, I want to create my self-care routine checklist. And you will create it just in a different way, because I'm busting the myth that you need a checklist. Because what you really always have with you is your heart, it's your intuition, it's your inner compass, your inner guidance system, hence the tune in method that I teach and I coach my clients through, because you have that whole navigating system. The GPS is inside of you. And if I give you a checklist, I give you more to do, it's not going to be helpful for you if you have a habit or a work ethic of burnout and overworking and overdoing. A checklist is not going to do it. It's not going to help. Excuse me. It's not going to help you. Okay. It would be like adding another tool in the toolbox that comes from someone else and that doesn't work for you. I want you to know that by being here, your intuition is worthy. Who you are is enough. What you think feels good to you is perfect as it is, and it is worthy to be seen and to be listened to. Okay. So, I mean, come on. We've all done it, right? We've all tried something like, okay, I'm going to start running because running is good, or, oh, I'm going to start doing yoga every day, or I'm going to meditate every day for 5 minutes, or whatever, right? We've all kind of set ourselves these goals that we wanted to try. It's like, again, adding a tool in the toolbox, and it works for a few days or a few hours, and then we're back to where we're started. Yeah. So today, not only are we busting a myth, we're doing it differently. And before I bring Lisa on, I want to share with you how I came to do it differently, why, and what my self-care checklist is, so that you can, have that mind tamed for one way. I have to say that when I did my second yoga teacher training, I used to be very rigid with my structure for yoga. In the morning, I would do 3 hours of yoga. It was non-negotiable. For me, it was non-negotiable to be on my yoga mat for 3 hours. And there was a strict routine, even in the yoga practice. I would start with meditation and breathing techniques. Then I would go into the asanas, and I would move my body a specific way with a specific order, starting with, I think I was starting with forward folds, and then with side stretches, and then with back bends, and then with, you get it. There was an order to which my yoga practice was even done in. And at some point, I realized that rigidity was not supportive of me. It was just like adding something else on the to-do list, and it was no longer a self-care practice. So I'm going to give you my top 3 checklists if that's what you want to follow. The first thing is tuning into what feels good in the moment. And as not direct or as unconventional as that might be, as less tangible as that can sound, tuning into what feels good in the moment is perfect. So, for example, when you wake up in the morning, if you feel like, I don't have energy today to go and walk and do my workout routine. Okay, well, how do you want to feel? And in that moment, what would be best supportive for you? I have some days where I meditate laying down in my bed because that feels good for me. That's me anchoring back into my light, anchoring back into the present moment, using meditation as a tool. And I'm not forcing myself to go sit in front of my altar. Why? Why would I put that pressure on myself? So that's a kind of belief also, to think that, okay, well, meditation only has to be done a certain way. That would be a belief that you get to choose to entertain and believe it or not. So first thing is tuning into what feels good to you. Second thing is, first thing, tuning into what feels good to you. Second thing is, what am I really committed to? So I'm going to ask you that. What are you really committed to? So we can always think of self-care as many different categories. We can look at self-care for our body and move our body and lose weight and work out and have, good muscle memory and all of that. We can also think of self-care as being kind to ourselves, self-love, and choosing what to think, choosing our thoughts. We can also see self-care as spiritual connection. And so the second thing that I do as a checklist is, what am I committed to? And lately, what I'm committed to is being anchored in my divine light, in my divine beingness of who I am, so that anything I take on, does that feel in alignment with my divine being, with who I am as a light being, as that soul? Does that feel in alignment with my soul? That's what I'm committed to. So number one on my checklist, which is not really a checklist, but I'm, in service to that ego need, is I'm tuning into what feels good in the moment. And by the way, I'm releasing judgment. That would be part of the first one. Okay. Tuning into what feels good in the moment and releasing judgment. The second part is, what did I say? The second part is, what am I committed to? So what am I committed to? Am I committed to feeling good in my body? Am I committed to being anchored with that divine light being who I am? What are you committed to? In other words, that could be, what is your intention? Yeah. What's your intention for self-care? Before you take any action, you get to re-anchor into that reason why you're doing it. And the number 3 checklist that I would add is one word, and it's trust. Trust that whatever your intuition and your soul and the moment wants for you is just perfect. Trust that you don't need to put that extra pressure. Trust that whatever you need direction with will come. Trust that you are worthy of self-care. Trust that you are worthy of prioritizing yourself, and that whether you choose to meditate for 5 minutes, go for a walk for 10, breathe for 3 breaths, all of that is worthy. And trust that it is enough for where you are. Instead of piling more on your to-do list and forcing yourself to do one thing at a time, forcing yourself to do just all of these things like you would take on work. If you take on your self-care practice as work with the same energy of pressure, you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed and let down by yourself. Does that make sense? So the 3 checklists I had for you they were: tune into what feels good for you in the moment. What are you committed to? And trust. Trust that what you choose, what you do, and who you are is enough. Okay, you're listening to the Be Happy Now show. I'm Claudia-Sam, your soul connection coach. And if ever you want to hear more about the tune-in method and working with me one-on-one in my tune-in program, then please visit tuneinprogram.com. And one person who has done the tune-in program is with me, Lisa. Hello, Lisa. You can unmute yourself now.
Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for hopping on and having this conversation with me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I love the relationship that Lisa and I have grown into. And so I have a few questions that can help you also as you're listening. So Lisa, I'd love for you to tell us, like, what has your self-care routine been like in the past or recently that you can tell us about?
Well, we've been working together for quite some time now, but prior to our working together, there was no self-care routine. My self-care routine was probably go get a pedicure and go get a massage. And to me, that's what self-care was all about. Since working with you, I've realized that although, sure, those are self care routine things, they're not maybe the self care routine things that really touch your heart, your mind, and your soul. Um, and so now I've had a completely different outlook on that, and with your help have realized that and have changed that self-care routine up. And I'm very much so an in the moment person because like you, I've also been a to-do list person, but I kind of have mental breakdown when the to-do list doesn't get done the exact way. So I've realigned myself there as well and focused more on what feels right for me in that moment.
Mm, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'd love for you to oops, let me make sure we can see both of us. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love for you to tell us what was a belief that you were entertaining, like, since what I understand and hear is that seeing self-care in that way wasn't in full service to you. Is that true?
Right.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And so I get that you kind of let go of an old way of seeing self-care. So what would you say was the thing that you were believing about how self-care had to be?
I would say, well, first of all, I mean, honestly, if I want to be completely honest, there was no self care routine. I was not raised, brought up, didn't see my mom or grandparents, grandmothers take care of themselves. I mean, I took care of everybody else
Mm,
and dealt with everybody else before I would put myself first and take care of myself. So, I mean, I guess if you want to go so far back as there was no self care routine and literally was no self care routine until I found you.
thank you. Yeah, I totally get that. And so would a belief be like something that keeps entertaining, like, oh, but it's selfish to put myself first?
Yes. Oh, definitely. And I still today struggle with that and have to realign myself because that is one that I struggle with. I mean, I'm no spring chicken, so I've lived lots of years where I take care of everybody else. So having to change that up for as many years as I am old is some days a constant battle.
Thank you. And yet, if we can use this time to celebrate, because Lisa, you've gone from feeling like you didn't have time, energy, like you were not well worthy. Like the selfish part was much more in the forefront when we started working together, which was
Hmm.
probably like 2 years ago. And so now, what is the discourse in your mind? What is the, how can I say it? What is the inner chatter about when it comes to self-care? What is your mind saying? Because I know it's more positive than it was. So I'd love to have our listeners hear, what can their old way of seeing self-care become?
I really work hard to tune into what my heart is telling me, what my I guess maybe what you a lot of times hear people say is what my gut instinct is, what my gut is telling me. I believe that inner chatter is what my soul is needing, um, and I tune into that, yeah, I'm a daily workout person, but if I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling like I can't do it, I still get caught up in should I, shouldn't I? But I know to really stop and pause, to take, I probably take 3 or 4 deep breaths and really feel into what is my body saying. And if, my body, if I really feel like the right thing to do is to stay in bed and roll over and go to sleep, then I stay in bed and I roll over and go to sleep. Later, I might wish I wouldn't have done that, but I work really hard to just let that go because I know that that's what my body needed in that moment.
Thank you. And I want to re-pick up what you said about how in the moment you take 2 to 3 deep breaths and then you make a decision from there. And for you listening who might, if you might be thinking that self-care needs to be this lengthy thing, just I invite you to just hear what Lisa just said and remember that your self-care can happen in an instant by choosing to be in those 3 breaths. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Lisa?
Well, when you say that, I guess in my mind, when we first started working, in my mind, self care was like this, I guess maybe this long to do list. And I used to think, okay, like I really have time to take self care. And yeah, I've begun to, or have come to the point where I have learned that sometimes all it takes is those 2 to 3 deep breaths, or I'll put on, I'm really have strong beliefs in my Christianity. So I might put on my favorite song, or, um, you know, read a book or whatever, and yeah, it doesn't need to be anything lengthy at all, which is not what I used to think.
Thank you. And also what I'm hearing and what, pardon me, that you're sharing is you're going to be tuned into how you want to feel. So can you tell us on a day-to-day basis, what are you using self-care to help you feel like?
Um, Healthier, um, happier, lighter, um, and just less clutter and chatter in my brain, right? Like my inner brain voice really tries to get the best of me. And when I can tell, I didn't used to be able to when we first started working, but I've gotten to the point now where I can tell when I'm letting that inner chatter win me over versus using the techniques of acknowledging that inner chatter and, basically throwing it away, telling it that, I see you, I hear you, like you've coached me to do, and then just kind of, but I don't have time for you type of thing. And that helps me a lot.
Mm, thank you. I mean, how beautiful, right? You get to use the tools that you want to use in the moment. And I'm feeling a much softer approach to how before it was like something to tackle or something to
Yes.
take on, like this other thing to put in your backpack, this other brick that you get to carry with you. And now it feels very much more gentle.
Right. Much more natural to me.
Mm, thank you. And as if you're listening now, the question that I would love for you to answer is when you think about self-care, how do you want it to make you feel? When you think about self-care, how do you want it to make you feel? And you could look at it from like 4 different categories. It could be, how do you want it to make you feel physically? So like Lisa, you were saying, you want to feel healthy. It could also be on a mental level, on the emotional level, and on the spiritual level. So Lisa, when what has it looked like? I mean, I think we've covered this question, but what has it looked like for you to create a routine that suits you? And do you even relate to the word routine anymore without putting that extra pressure on yourself?
No, I was going to say, I don't have a routine because I don't. Um, I guess if you want to look at it as a routine, I pretty much get up every morning, get myself around, do my workout. When I come home, um, I'm usually still very, very hot, so it takes me some time to cool down. And in that time of cooling down and relaxing, I usually do my Bible lesson, do some praying time, some deep breathing. Um, I receive my tune in messages from you. I usually always do those at that time. Um, I'm also love the Headspace app. Has really helped me a lot because once again, I'm no spring chicken. Back in the day when I was growing up, there was no talk of the word meditation. So I always thought meditation had this right or wrong. I could never, there's no way I was going to ever meditate, excuse me, because I didn't know how. I always thought there was, this way or that way, and there was rules to it. And now I know that that's not true. And so that's usually kind of what my morning routine starts out with. Now, that being said, that doesn't always work, right? Because if something's come up or you have an appointment to go to, or for those that have to take children to school or daycare or whatever it may be, you maybe not have time to scrunch all that in. So that's okay. But then usually what I choose to do is either do it sometime during the day, but my most favorite time to do things then is routine, if you will, and just end my night that way. It's to end my evening.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm going to repeat what you said since it just cut a little. So what I heard you say is that your favorite time to just retune in would be before you close your eyes at night. And that would be a routine mixed in both the morning walk and the listening to the pocket coaching from you being in the Soul Connector Circle. And then at night, again, kind of a second touch point. So thank you. And one thing I want to reiterate for our listeners here is something you said that if you don't get to everything, that's okay. And that kind of leaning back, like, that's okay energy is also what I want you to hear as a listener. So I have two questions for you that you're listening, who is listening, to add to when you think about self-care, how you want it to make you feel like, then what would it look like for you to create a routine that suits the way you want to feel without putting pressure on yourself, was a question I asked Lisa that I would invite you to answer. And then what would feel like the best first step for you here? And are you willing to let this be enough? So what would feel like the best first step here for you? And are you willing to let that be enough? We are closing in on our episode today. Thank you, Lisa, for having been here. I'm really glad that we got to chat.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful. And if you want to keep connecting, please, to find out more about the Tune In program, this is my one-on-one program. You can go to tuneinprogram.com. And if you want to apply to join the Tune In Journey Coaching Growth Group, please send an email to team@Claudia-Sam-soulcoaching.com saying, I'd like info about the Tune In Journey, and we'll send you the application form with more details. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again soon. You've been listening to the Be Happy Now show with me, Claudia-Sam. Flex your soul connection muscle and be your inner guide to fulfillment and purpose. Tune in live every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. You are worthy of being you and of connecting to what stops you from living the life you are meant to live. Access more soul connection coaching at claudiasamcoaching.com.